Good morning or good afternoon to all the attendees on right now. We're going to start here in just a moment. I thank you for your time. We're just going to give a little bit more time for those that are joining at the top of the hour before we start. Okay. Well, good morning and good afternoon to all those able to join us today. I'm excited to turn around and present how enterprises can get hyperlocal within Nextdoor. Um, My name is Brian Smith, and I'm the Director of Data Partnerships here at Rio SEO. Happy to introduce JJ McMahon, who is my counterpart over at Nextdoor that manages partnerships there. So we all know that it's everyone's quite busy catching up after the holidays, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us for this conversation with Nextdoor today. I believe one of the biggest challenges we as local marketers face is to effectively reach consumers or customers in the moments, in the immediate moments and thereafter. What's more important is it's becoming increasingly difficult to target those hyperlocal customers as they within the surrounding areas as they look to shop in those micro hyperlocality areas. Despite continued unpredictability and enhanced safety measures across the country, we have found consumers are continuing to seek local businesses near them. In fact, searches for available near me were up over 100% in 2020 compared to 2019. This further surfaces a need for prioritization by reaching those nearby consumers on platforms they know and continue to trust. One of those local marketing platforms in which we have not had the opportunity to explore yet is Nextdoor. Today, we're joined by Nextdoor to further discussions and the opportunities that enterprise local marketers can gain by leveraging their platform. Let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Brian Smith. As I had said earlier, I'm the Director of Data Partnerships at Rio SEO, and I'll be moderating today's discussion, and I'm thrilled to be joined with JJ McMahon, Partnership Manager at Nextdoor. JJ,
Thanks, Brian.
Could you tell us a little more about your role at Nextdoor?
Yeah, absolutely. So at Nextdoor, I'm the local partnerships manager. So what that means is anything that falls in our local business products. So what we'll primarily be speaking about today is our Nextdoor business pages. And then anytime we're partnering with a company like Rio SEO to bring in brand location data to our platform and make sure that it's being updated on a regular basis to ensure accuracy of the data that our members are discovering, I manage those relationships. So as Brian mentioned, I work really closely with him as we've grown this partnership over the last gosh, 9 months or so.
Great. Thank you for that, JJ. So just a couple of housekeeping items, a reminder for those before we get started. Although we can't hear you, we'd love to keep this webinar conversational. We welcome your questions throughout the webinar, which you can send by locating the Q&A button in the Zoom panel control for the application. We'll answer as many questions as we can live, but if we don't get to your question, we'll be sure to follow up with you afterwards. You can certainly follow today's conversation on Twitter, as we'll be live tweeting throughout the webinar at Rio_SEO and using hashtag RioWebinar. Finally, today's webinar is being recorded, and we will be happy to send the link out of this recording within the next 24 hours, so look out for the follow-up email from our marketing team there. I'm going to hand it over to JJ so he can give us a little more insight into Nextdoor's platform and how it might benefit local businesses.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, so I think it's always best to start with an overview of what Nextdoor is for anybody that's not a member on the platform. For those of you that are members, probably a little bit of a review, but Nextdoor is the neighborhood hub for all things local. It's where you go to interact with your neighbors, learn about local businesses, get timely updates from public agencies, really anything that's hyperlocal specific to your neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods. Nextdoor is the hub for that. And so when you join Nextdoor as a member, we ask you for your address, and then we will basically verify your address to say if you live at 1 Main Street, and you tell us that's where you live, we'll verify that, and then we will place you in the appropriate neighborhood based on that verification. So what that means is everybody that you're seeing either post in the feed or react to your posts or comment on posts are real people verified by their actual address that live around you. And why that's important is it takes a little bit of it adds some authenticity to those interactions, right? It's a different platform than maybe other social platforms where, I might be friends on another platform with my roommate from college who lives in Arizona, but that doesn't mean that I should see what's happening in his neighborhood, nor should he see what's happening in mine. It's really built around location and keeping those neighborhood conversations hyper local and specific to the people that are engaging in them. And then one important aspect of the neighborhood, and this is a perfect transition, Brian, is not only are there neighbors, there are public agencies, as I mentioned, local businesses, enterprise businesses with locations in those specific neighborhoods. And so again, it expands beyond just neighbor to neighbor interactions, but how can I get things done around me or find the information that I need that's specific to me as a neighbor, knowing that if you're on Nextdoor, you're looking for something that's hyper local. So, before COVID, we were looking at online activity shifting to local. And as you see here, as we were conducting this research, 7 in 10 adults are interested in a digital neighborhood resource to connect them with the local community. Again, that's neighbors, local businesses, timely updates from public agencies. And then at the same time, on the other side of the coin, 60% of multi-location marketers agree that local ratings, reviews, and social media have a direct impact on their customers visiting a store or making a purchase. So when we tie those two things together around the demand from adults looking for that hyperlocal resources and marketers looking and understand the value of that hyperlocal demand, that's where Nextdoor sits at the intersection and why this partnership with Rio is so impactful.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and that's one of the reasons why we established this relationship. Is that obviously locality does present the opportunity for local businesses, and that is user intent. So having your individual platform and that hyper locality for those individual consumers to interact with those local businesses is a huge benefit, and the reason why we reached out to you to establish this partnership.
Exactly. Yeah, hop to the next slide. So kind of as I mentioned, there is a level of trust here on the platform because, again, it's real people at real addresses. So, I can't pop over to Brian's neighborhood and see what's happening there the same way he can't pop into mine. But those people that show up in my neighborhood, I know they live around me and are properly placed there. And so really are my neighbors in my community. There's high utility on the platform. So again, not only is it interacting with neighbors, but around, hey, I saw this thing happen, or hey, did you see there's construction at this corner, but does anybody know of a plumber, right? Or does anybody know, typically or particularly in COVID, we've seen people posting into the feed to support local businesses around, hey, this is one of my favorite restaurants. It's open for the pickup and delivery, or they have outside dining or whatever it might be. We also have a commerce section, which is for sale and free, where members can post goods for sale or for free, as mentioned, and then events, local deals, and then local businesses, that, as we mentioned, which is the primary topic for today. Next slide, Brian, if you wouldn't. Oh, perfect. So speaking to the hyper-local nature of Nextdoor, recommendations for services, products, and things were a little bit different than other platforms where we don't have a star rating of 1 through 5 as other platforms might. We just have what's called, we call a heart count, which is really a recommendation count. So when you're looking at pages, you'll see a number of hearts, not a scale. So it's a really binary, either I recommend this business or I don't take any action and just don't do anything on that page. And that's really important because, again, recommendations show up on the business pages, which is part of our partnership with Rio. So speaking to the behaviors on our platform or the sentiment on our platform, 76% of neighbors have been influenced by a neighbor recommendation. And then on the other side of the coin, 67% have offered a recommendation. And so that's where we see that interaction and that exchange of information at the hyperlocal level be really valuable, because typically when you're looking for things related specifically to your home or your neighborhood, you're not looking to travel super far away to get them done, or it's going to be a service professional that's coming to your location, or something's being brought to you. And so you want to kind of figure that shortest distance or support that local location. And then speaking again to that location-based discovery, 90% of all purchases are made within 15 miles of home or work. So regardless of what you're buying or what you're looking for, you want it to be close to you. And that's where, again, having discoverability of your locations as an enterprise on the Nextdoor platform can tap into that hyper-local intent that we see. Next slide, Brian. Again, here's some demographic info. We're 1 in 4 households, 11 countries. And so maybe just digest that slide for a couple of seconds, then we can bounce to the next one.
Yeah.
One more, Brian. So again, bouncing back to Nextdoor business pages, that's the primary piece of the partnership that we have with Rio. So looking at the ecosystem, what we saw is, again, as people are going into Nextdoor and looking for recommendations, they might recommend, for example, Bay Grape or Brian's Plumbing, or hey, this is a great location, local business around the corner. And so we saw those interactions happening on the platform. And so now businesses are encouraged to have a presence so that they can control how they show up to members in their neighborhood. So again, the key piece of our platform is that verification, and that allows businesses to instantly reach their nearby customers. And what I mean when I say that is, we don't actually have to require businesses, or businesses don't have to go out to gather a following or a number of likes or a number of followers, because again, we know which members live around that location. And so we can instantly expose that business page when it's published on the platform to those people that live in that neighborhood. Bouncing that next bullet, again, the high intent audience that's eager to support local. The verified membership is a major piece of our platform. And we found that 88% of members shop at a local business at least once a week. So having business pages on the platform just increases the discoverability of those local businesses for members. And again, they're already taking this action. And so being in front of them should be top of mind. We talked a little bit earlier about the real customer reviews. We won't really jump back into that, but again, the verified member base and our recommendation count, not the star count, is what makes us different than other platforms. Is again, the real people from real addresses that are interacting and engaging on the platform. And then again, looking at the discoverability of your pages here, just being authentic and hyperlocal. Next page, Brian. And so in looking at having a presence on the platform, business pages are great. And as you can see, there's some robust content that you can have on here. And that's directly enabled through our partnership with Rio. So as you're working with Rio to opt into Nextdoor for your pages, things like photos can come through, description of your business or that specific enterprise location, categories, all of that information comes through to us and is updated on a weekly basis. And so anytime you're making changes within your Rio platform and you're opted into Nextdoor, those will cascade through to us to make sure that our members are finding the most up-to-date and accurate information through the partnership. And then we also released business posts. So business posts are really the first time that a local business or a location can interact, post into the news feed on the platform. And so each business gets 2 posts per month, and those will be published in the news feed to members in their surrounding area. And those are really great for things, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but posting business updates, events, polls, things like that to drive engagement for your business within the neighborhood. Next slide, please, Brian. So again, these are all things that we work with Brian and the team on, but so you'll have a really scalable solution through the existing relationship that you have with Rio that you can just kind of check the box and move Nextdoor as a part of that umbrella. But these are just best practices, which I'm sure a lot of you are really familiar with. Adding a cover photo, multiple photos. So here's a great example of a restaurant. There's the staff up there as the header. They have their logo in kind of what you'd consider the profile picture, little tile there. And then there's a photo gallery showcasing some of their dishes. So when members are finding Mary's Restaurant, it gives that really neighborhood feel. You can see who the staff is. You can see what kind of food they have, some examples of those dishes. And then again, telling your story. And so providing kind of not only just visuals, but also written background on your location is really important. And something that we've seen members find really useful. And then again, contact information is obviously really important. And that's something that gets updated through Rio as well. Have your hours changed? Has your website updated? Is there something that we need to be doing to make sure that members are finding that accurate information based on the changing needs of your business? And I'm seeing some questions come through. So maybe I'll just tackle these as they come. Is that all right, Brian?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So Kathy, you asked, is there a best practice for using Nextdoor for hiring hourly employees? We don't have a job posting function right now. However, if you are looking to hire hourly employees, business posts could be a way that you could engage the neighborhood for people that are looking for work around them. And so again, not necessarily like a formal, hey, this is a job posting type tool that we have for businesses, but there is a mechanism again through business posts that you can do that.
JJ, just a quick question for myself. Typically, when you look at the business posts, what type of posts typically get the most traction? I mean, is it offers? Is it specials? Is it obviously promotions? Those are certainly big drivers, or is it just updates?
Yeah, and it's really, it can be anything across the board. Obviously within our neighborhood guidelines that you can post. But what we found is things like this from Bluebird Cafe, and we'll show a couple other examples later. But what are the types of things that members want, right? Overly commercial content in business posts can be valuable, but again, to the level that there's, or to the extent there's a level of authenticity around, crowdsourcing requests, sharing updates about your business, get feedback from the neighborhood, like we said, those types of things tend to resonate really well with members because they fit very well in the news feed, right? Those informational type posts, similar to this one, where they are marketing the fact here that they have breakfast kits available, but there's obviously rich content from the point of view of a photo here, and then also it's not just like, hey, order our breakfast kits online. There's a lot of information around why they've put together breakfast kits. And how they can help members. So those high utility things tend to be very engaging for members, and we see them perform best. Typically during COVID too, there's a lot of information, or I should say maybe an information gap on what's open for which services on which days of the week and when. I think everybody can agree that 2020 was a year of ever, if there was a constant in 2020, it was the fact that there was change, and we kind of continue to be in that period depending on what part of the country you live in. And so for businesses to kind of take the reins and say, look, I'm going to own my own destiny on Nextdoor and post into the neighborhood newsfeed where members are most active, to tell them exactly what I'm open for. Am I open for ordering online? Do I have outdoor seating available now? Is it just pickup only? Am I now available on a delivery service? Those types of things we found have really gotten a lot of great interaction, because members are looking to support local businesses in the ways that they know how. And so giving that information out as a business just, really gets it out to the people that care the most.
Yeah, no, that's great. We do have another question from one of our attendees. Let me see.
Perfect. So maybe I'll flip-flop these. So somebody asked, can you add a link to book an appointment? We don't currently have that functionality on the platform. And then Heather asked, you may already plan to cover this, service area businesses. So we don't currently have the ability to provide a mile radius for, I operate within this area. However, for service-based businesses, when you create a business page, and this will kind of answer Marianne's question as well, the discoverability of pages or the visibility of pages is based on where that business is located. And that's through, again, the address that we get from the Rio data feed for your business. So those business pages will be discoverable on the platform. It doesn't allow you to say, hey, I'm a service-based business. We'll use a plumber as an example. And, my polygon for how I operate or what my service area is here. Not something we currently support, but that's definitely great feedback and something that I can take back to the product team and highlight to them. And then Marianne asked, is the 2 mile radius the max? For business posts, it is. And that's based on, again, the address of your business page. So if I'm a coffee shop, I'm located at 1 Main Street, I create a business post. All neighbors that live in that 2 mile radius can see that business post. We have a couple of other products that do allow for a kind of wider reach. Those are paid products. One is local deals, and you can create a more finite targeting for that deal, but it shows up on some different areas of the platform than a business post. And then we have neighborhood sponsorship, which allows you some different ad placements throughout the platform that are zip code based. So you buy those on a zip code basis. And then the last question from Nancy. Sorry, am I hitting these too quick, Brian?
Nope.
Keep coming in, so I'm going to go rapid fire on them. And then managing 44 locations in one account. So currently, the way that our partnership with Rio SEO is set up is the data feed that comes through will update those pages. So in the sense of like managing the data that shows up on your pages from one location, that would be done through your Rio portal. And again, that provides great scale for you guys, which is part of the reason that we've, one of the many reasons we have this partnership. In terms of managing locations, when you come in and claim your business page and you enable that ability or given that ability to post, there is a limit on the number of locations that can be associated with one login. And so happy to follow up with that one with some more specifics, Nancy, if you want to chat after this or reach out to Brian and we can set up some time to talk. Yep. And then Whitney will also connect post webinar to discuss more of the zip code targeting as a service business. That's probably something that we want to take offline.
Great. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about posts. I know that I talked to you about the availability and what was the best types of content, but some of the things in which that you guys have available.
Yeah, I think we have some on the next slide. If not, we can bounce back to this one.
Yep, we got some tips.
There we go. Yeah, so again, looking at posts, this really goes to Brian's question earlier. What are some best practices? The type of content we kind of covered in the last slide, really engaging content, updates, things like that members are going to look at and say, wow, it's actually really valuable information for me to have. Again, we're reopening this Saturday. There's a local bookstore. I think we all have one of those in our neighborhood. I had one growing up, and it was a place like, maybe a fun fact, I had to turn in my Halloween candy every year after 2 days for a book. Not by choice. I asked if I was allowed to not have to take the book and could keep the candy. My mom didn't allow that, but that became a routine for us every year. So, I think for me, the local bookstore holds a special place in my heart. And then the example here is Bumblebee Books, reopening Saturday, 11 to 6. And so those types of updates, again, from a content perspective, and then really around like just best practices of what you should be doing when. Post between the hours of 5 and 7, when members are maybe coming home from work and logging on, seeing what happened in the neighborhood for that day. Plan to post on Thursdays or Fridays as members are looking for things to do on the weekend. Getting those updates around, wow, Bumblebee's opening back up on Saturday. Maybe that's something I grab the kids and go do. And then spreading your posts out, 2 posts back to back, probably doesn't provide as much utility as, one on week 1 of a month and one on week 3 of a month, to really make sure you're hitting members, at the beginning of the month or at one time, and then following up with something to make sure that you're top of mind for them. And then photos, here you can see that's just a picture of the inside of Bumblebee Books. So again, that rich content on anything that you're doing, either business pages to show something about your business location, or something to highlight or back up or enrich that business post that you're creating as well.
Hey, JJ, quick question. I know you had said that the local businesses have 2 posts per month. If the local business wants to do more than that, is that available, or is that something that you might be putting in the works for later?
Yeah, right now it's limited to 2 posts per month. If we run into a case, and I'm sure we have, and I'm just not up to speed on it, but as this expands our partnership, Brian, like if you're getting feedback from people, and I would say this to the attendees on the call, if there's feedback that you have around, the number of posts or the number of times you would like to post, that's certainly something I'm all ears for and happy to feedback to the team internally.
Perfect.
Again, a couple of business post ideas. I think COVID has definitely provided some more opportunities, for better or for worse, to highlight how or what types of messaging you can have. This one is a thank you post for the loyal customers. And then what type of safety measures are you taking? Again, what services are you open for? What need to be taken offline? Are you shutting down again? Are you reopening again? Those types of things really spark great conversation in the neighborhood.
Great.
And then again, looking at the tools for local businesses, we talked about business pages. That's really easy to set up through our partnership with Rio SEO. Again, one of the main drivers for us to create this partnership, as Brian mentioned. Business posts, those are the 2 per month per claimed page that we mentioned. Local deals allow a little bit more targeting. It is a paid product, but again, it allows you to expand that radius outside of that 2 miles from your location. And then you can actually select specific neighborhoods that you want to target around that broader radius. So if you know that you have great penetration in one area, but not so great penetration in another, or you really want to focus your efforts, it'll allow you, to be very targeted with how you're messaging out to the member base, to make sure that those dollars that you're putting towards local deals are being most efficient in speaking to the audience that you want to reach. And then neighborhood sponsorship is another product that we mentioned. And this is maybe to that original question for service-based businesses. This is zip code based. And so you would come in, you'd say which zip code you want kind of some of that premium ad placement or that sponsorship in, and then would purchase that. Again, it's another paid product, but happy to provide some more info. I think it was Nancy that asked that question, but there were like 5 in quick succession. So whoever it was, happy to send over some more information if needed.
Hey, JJ, quick question
Yeah.
about sponsorship. So one of the things that I like about the Nextdoor platform is that you guys do the geo proximity of neighborhood-based calendars. The neighborhood sponsorship, does that include those geographical or polygon areas of a neighborhood, or is that just a radius expanded?
So it's actually neither. It's a third option where it's zip code based. So you when you come in, you'll basically search for the zip code that you're hoping to sponsor. We'll provide you a price for that zip code, as well as some stats on kind of some expected volume or your reach in that neighborhood. In that zip code.
Yep. And we typically see within the zip codes, those zip codes are actually the parameters for the neighborhoods themselves, which fits nicely.
Yeah, it's interesting. You'll actually have a little bit of overlap where, a zip code might encompass multiple
Yep.
neighborhoods. But again, typically, especially in more densely populated areas, you can find a little bit more breadth of reach within a zip code.
Great. All right. Well, so
We got our poll.
thank you, DJ. Before we close out the webinar, I'd like to get the audience's insight as to how often everyone's currently shopping with their neighborhood businesses. As you see, the questions are posted on the screen. I'll enable the poll here in a second. There's 5 different answers in which that you can specifically provide. As a researcher at heart for myself, I always love to see, where's the radii, or where's the proximity, and how far people are willing to go. Are they really being more inclusive of the local area? Primarily via the pandemic, and what are the out causes of that from shopping behavior. So if you all wouldn't mind, I'm going to enable this polling question here for you. Would love everyone to turn around and take part in that. Give you a good 15, 30 seconds to get some preliminary results and understanding. Great, getting some good results here. And they're great to see, especially moving forward from a difficult year, as many businesses have seen over this past year of course, with the COVID pandemic. It also points to the importance of being found where consumers are actually specifically looking within their neighborhood. So what I see here is that the vast majority are willing to go up to 5 to 10 miles. At about 50% of our audience is saying that they would be willing to go out to that extremity from a distance perspective of their house. Very few would go out for 10 to 20, and then a couple said that they would, depending upon the business and what they were searching for, they would be willing to drive wherever it was specifically needed. So that's good to know. All right. So I want to talk to everybody on the webinar today to talk about how Rio partners with Nextdoor. So our capabilities currently are the availability to maintain accurate business listings, which include business name, address, phone, website, operation hours. I think this year, above any other year, we've seen the importance of having some type of programmatic solution to be able to update our individual business hours because of some of the local municipality and state governances that we've seen with the pandemic and what we've done. So this has enabled a lot of our clients to be able to interact with Nextdoor and get the most updated information out there about their locations, if they're open, if they're closed, what are their reduced hours of operations. Also, we have the availability to control visual aspects of your listing, right? We have cover photos, any other photos, as JJ had specifically mentioned about the listing, making it relevant for the individual consumer to see that you are a local business and are interested in bringing them in the doors. Third is communicate your brand story and the information that's relevant to the consumer themselves to be able to self-identify with them. And then finally, showcase links and takeout and delivery, such things also with gift cards and fundraisers, right? One of the things in my local community, fundraisers are big, and that availability to be able to interact with those local businesses that are giving back to the community is especially sought out by some of the neighbors that I have the fortune happening to live around. We've got a couple of individual questions here. If zip codes has a wait list, how long does a business have to be on that wait list for zip code, JJ?
Yeah, it's the answer is it depends, which I know is not like a finite answer, but to the extent that we limit the number of the share of voice within a specific zip code for our sponsorship product. So to the extent that that zip code is full and remains full on a month-over-month basis, then a slot would not free up. And so you would continue to be on the wait list. But if somebody decides, I'm going to pause for this month or something like that, and does move out of that zip code sponsorship slot and one frees up, then that would become available. And again, we might go from 5 slots filled to 4 of the 5, and there's 1 left. So it really can change, almost potentially real time, but typically kind of month over month is how we look at it.
Excellent. And then I do know that there's a number of people that are interested in that sponsorship details. And so for those that have expressed interest, we'll make sure to follow up with you after the webinar with the appropriate information for you. So one of the things that really kind of excited me about this opportunity with Nextdoor to bring it for our enterprise clients is it really enables the brands that are enterprise based, which we know that can be problematic to be able to manage those if you don't have a simple solution to manage the name, address, phone numbers, hours of operation, so forth. So right, it enables brands to be able to see in the hyperlocal ecosystem which we've talked about. Much like with the polling questions that we saw before, the vast majority of you would do business upwards around 5 to 10 miles at most. So this brings those enterprise brands to be able to be in that local environment, to interact with the individual consumers, to foster the community. And then finally, search results only highlight locations where the searchers are allowing brands to take part in that discoverability and recommendation solution. We all know and understand how recommendations play an important part for those individual consumers. You know, we as digital marketers understand the value of that, and consumers are going out all individual places to search what those individual personal recommendations might be from recommendation engines such as Nextdoor. So, you know, I want to close this out. Lots of great things in which that I think that the Nextdoor partnership brings to Rio and our client, you know, our current clients and potential clients. But JJ, I think always the question on my mind is what's on the next horizon for us? What can we?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, important context is we kicked this partnership off with Rio, I think, gosh, April or May of last year. So we're, you know, Brian and I's relationship is budding, let's put it that way. And so, you know, Brian's been a great resource for helping me understand all of the capabilities of the Rio platform. And it's a really robust platform. Right now, our partnership exists, again, to kind of update those business pages with the relevant information. But we understand that there's a lot of different things that Rio provides back to you that we want to be able to leverage in the future. So, you know, Brian and I work really closely on understanding what those are. I feed those back to our product team, and then hoping that we can roll some things out this year to start to really leverage the full breadth of that Rio platform.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. I do want to thank everybody before I wrap up for your time. We've covered a lot of ground today. There were some questions in which that were specifically asked, certainly some follow-up for us as well for those interested in the neighborhood sponsorship. We'd like to make sure that everybody's word and question is specifically answered. If you have a question outside of this and you want it to be answered, feel free to reach out to marketing@rioseo.com. I'd like to say thank you to JJ for joining us today for our discussion. It's been my pleasure to moderate today's discussion as well as bring this partnership to light for you all. We hope to see you again in the webinar coming soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.